Have you ever stopped to think about how many brilliant minds are buried every day, simply because of prejudice? That's right. We live in a society that still believes talent has a uniform, an address, and a fancy last name, that only those who speak eloquently or dress appropriately have something valuable to offer. But today, you're about to hear one of those stories that completely dismantles that myth in a way no one will be able to ignore. And I'll tell you more. If you still think recognition depends on appearance, status, or pedigree, get ready, because this story will turn your world upside down and show you how life can change in just a few minutes. Picture this: a packed classroom, students either paying attention or pretending to, teachers with critical eyes, and an atmosphere thick with tension. It was evaluation day, but not just any evaluation. The school was hosting an open event where the best students would be invited to solve difficult problems publicly, in front of everyone. A true showcase of talent. But in the middle of this whole spectacle, a teacher decided to act on impulse, or maybe out of sheer prejudice. There, sitting at the back of the room, almost invisible among the others, was Lucas, a simple boy, worn-out clothes, an old backpack, battered shoes. He wasn't the type to attract attention, at least not by the usual standards. But that day, to everyone's surprise, he was called upon, and not kindly. The teacher, with a smirk blending disdain and challenge, pointed at him. Let's see if our hidden genius can solve this one. The problem was extremely difficult, something that would take an adult weeks of training. Most of the students couldn't even understand the question. The challenge was clear. She wanted to expose the boy to prove that everyone has their place was still an absolute truth. And in that moment, all eyes turned to him. Some looked on with pity, others already anticipating his failure. But you know that kind of silence that feels heavy, that signals something big is about to happen? That's exactly what filled the room when Lucas, without hesitation, stood up, walked to the board, and, with the calmness of someone used to being underestimated, began solving the problem, line by line, step by step. No rush, but with surgical precision. As he wrote, it was as if he was drawing solutions in the air. With each move, the murmurs faded. With every correct number that appeared on the board, more eyes widened. With every flawlessly completed equation, the entire room bowed to something they had all ignored until then: invisible genius. When Lucas finished, he set down the chalk, turned, and faced the teacher with a serene look, not of anger, not of arrogance, but of someone who knows exactly who he is, someone who doesn't need to shout to be heard. A timid clap started from the back of the room, then another, and suddenly, without anyone leading it, the whole room erupted in applause. The teacher, speechless, as pale as the chalkboard Lucas had just used as the stage for his silent victory. But the story didn't end there. In the days that followed, the school's administration wanted to know more about that boy. They discovered Lucas studied alone at home, using old books donated by the library, that he spent hours solving exercises out of passion, not obligation, that his grades had always been good, but never exceptional on traditional tests, maybe because until then, no one had asked the right questions. And then, something even bigger happened. One of the guest judges at the event was the coordinator of a scholarship program for young math talents. Amazed by Lucas's performance, he didn't hesitate. Days later, Lucas was offered a full scholarship to one of the best institutions in the region. A boy who almost got buried by prejudice now had the chance to build a brilliant future in his hands. Now tell me, how many similar stories go unnoticed every day? How many Lucases are out there, hidden, just waiting for a true opportunity? Not a test designed to humiliate, but a space to show what they're truly capable of. This story is a powerful reminder. There is no appearance that defines talent. There are no right clothes for wisdom. No last name can limit the greatness of a determined spirit. As for the teacher, she never looked at her students the same way again. That lesson, though painful for her, planted a seed of change. And for everyone who witnessed that moment, the transformation was profound. They learned, once and for all, that a person's worth is never in the packaging. Lucas, meanwhile, moved forward. He grew, he shined, and years later, he returned to that same school, not as a student, but as a guest speaker. With the same calm gaze, the same simple demeanor, he shared his journey with new students. And before finishing his talk, he left a sentence that echoed through the hallways. Never underestimate anyone. Sometimes, the greatest treasures in life come disguised in simplicity, and so, that little classroom became the stage for a transformation that transcended walls, resumes, and appearances. Because the stories that truly change the world don't need big stages or spotlights. They only need the courage to exist, and attentive eyes to be seen. Now I ask you, how many times in your life have you judged before knowing? How many opportunities to learn, grow, and truly connect have you missed because you only looked at the surface? May Lucas's story serve as a mirror, and more than that, as an invitation to change, to see beyond, to be a bridge, not a wall. Because at the end of the day, it's through attentive eyes and silent respect that the greatest transformations begin. And maybe, just maybe, the next amazing story the world tells will be yours. That morning seemed ordinary at the school. One of those you'd never imagine would turn into one of the great stories whispered through the corridors. The teacher, perhaps without realizing the gravity of what she was doing, looked at Lucas, a boy with worn clothes, messy hair, and a shy posture, and decided he would be the perfect victim for a public test. The complex, knotty math problem was thrown in his lap, like saying, "Let's see how far this kid's audacity to learn will go." And that's where the danger of judging by appearances lies, forgetting the content inside. How many times does life trap us in this way? The sad truth is, even today, appearance acts like an invisible label. Simple clothes become synonymous with incapacity, and a humble accent is mistaken for lack of intelligence. It's sad, but it's real. And these stories are repeated in schools, companies, and even inside homes. Want an example? Great geniuses like Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla were considered odd or weird before they changed the world. If they had stopped at the first sideways glance, what would have become of science? But what few realize, and here's the trick, is that these labels are actually hidden opportunities. If you've ever felt judged by your appearance, remember, every sideways glance can be fuel for your greatest comeback. And that's exactly what happened with Lucas, kicking off one of the most surprising stories in that school. And speaking of surprises, wait until you see the hidden talent this boy had. Behind Lucas's shyness was an entire universe no one there could even imagine. While many spent hours on social media or playing video games, Lucas was diving deep into old books, salvaged from forgotten libraries and free online lessons. It was as if he had found in those yellowed pages and virtual classes the secret portal to create his own stories of overcoming. And between you and me, how often are the solutions to our biggest problems hidden exactly where few dare to look? Lucas didn't have money for private tutoring, much less for prep courses. But what he had in abundance was determination. It's the old truth. Those who want, find a way. Those who don't, find excuses. He broke down complex subjects like number theory and linear algebra using free tools like Khan Academy and second-hand books. If you want to start down that path too, take note, starting with The Man Who Counted by Malba Tahan can change your view of math and life. And the most incredible thing is that Lucas did all of this in silence, like someone planting a tree far from the city's curious eyes. While many laughed or ignored him, he watered his talent every day with effort and genuine curiosity. Without even realizing it, he was writing one of the most inspiring stories that school would ever witness. And speaking of inspiration, you won't believe what happened when he was challenged publicly. When the teacher wrote the problem on the board, it was as if fate itself was giving Lucas the chance to turn humiliation into glory. Without hesitation, with the calmness of someone who has faced much greater storms, he picked up the chalk and started working. Every line he drew, Every number he wrote revealed a brilliant mind hidden beneath worn-out clothes. And so, under astonished gazes, he began one of the most memorable stories in that school's history. What impressed everyone the most was the way Lucas solved the problem. Not only did he find the correct answer, but he also presented a solution that was faster and more elegant than the one provided in the answer key. You know that moment when even silence seems to scream in surprise? That's exactly what happened. Students, teachers, even those pretending not to pay attention, were glued to him. If you want to build something similar in your life, remember, study to become so good that no one can ignore you. Books like Mindset by Carol Dweck can be powerful allies on that journey. And in that moment, Lucas's story stopped being invisible and became a reference. In a world that so often underestimates those without the perfect packaging, he proved that content, not appearance, is what changes the game. The classroom, which had been silently mocking just minutes before, was now filled with respect, and even a hint of shame. Little did they know that this twist was just the beginning of many other surprising stories to come. And speaking of surprises, Lucas's journey was about to take an even more unexpected turn that would change his future forever. Many people looked at Lucas and only saw the boy in simple clothes. What few knew was that behind that shy look was one of the most powerful stories of resilience you could ever find. The son of an illiterate mother, raised in a home where books were rare and time was divided between studying and small jobs, Lucas learned early that if he wanted to change his destiny, he would have to build his own bridges, step by step, without waiting for a handout. While his classmates spent entire afternoons at malls or parks, Lucas found a parallel world in the school's small library. There, among dusty shelves and worn-out books, he forged the foundation of his knowledge. And here's a valuable lesson. If today you feel you have few resources, know that great stories often start exactly like that, with scarcity, but a hunger to learn. Want to do the same? Start with books like The Little Prince to develop empathy, and The Book of Why to reignite your curiosity. Each page turned, each concept learned, was like planting invisible seeds that would one day blossom into something grand. And the most curious part, while many searched for excuses not to study, he searched for reasons not to give up. His journey, up to this point, was already inspiring, but there was still so much more to be revealed in this incredible walk that would write new stories of hope and transformation. And speaking of transformation, just wait until you see who noticed his talent. While the class was still processing what had just happened, something even bigger was brewing in the horizon of Lucas's stories. Among those attending that open class was a visiting professor from the university, someone with sharp eyes, able to see beyond appearances. He didn't waste a second. As soon as Lucas finished solving the problem, he approached and, with a sincere smile, extended an invitation that would change everything. Sometimes life sends signs, and this was one of them. The professor, renowned for leading scholarship programs for young talents, saw in Lucas a raw diamond that could not be ignored. Right there in front of everyone, he made the offer. He wanted Lucas in his special program, where brilliant minds received not just scholarships, but mentorship, psychological support, and access to advanced materials. And here's a tip that could apply to you too. When an opportunity arises, even if it seems scary, embrace it. Books like Disguised Opportunities by Carlos Domingos show how to recognize these precious moments. The reaction in the classroom was a mix of surprise and reverence. That shy boy, invisible to many just moments before, now shone brightly in front of everyone. And the best part, it wasn't just Lucas who would be transformed. This was only the first of many stories that would be born from that magical moment. And speaking of transformation, the teacher would also have her own lesson to learn. It was impossible to ignore what had happened. The teacher, who that very morning had carried judgment and disguised prejudice in her eyes, now felt the weight of reality pouring through her gaze. Standing in front of the class, she took a deep breath and, in a rare and courageous gesture, publicly apologized to Lucas. She admitted that she had judged based on appearance, just as society so often does, repeating old stories of exclusion that, unfortunately, persist to this day. But there, before the boy who had just changed so many lives, the teacher realized that her own story needed to change too. She committed herself, in front of everyone, to never again let someone's appearance influence her judgment. And for those who think changing a mindset is hard, here's a tip. Start with books like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which teach how small actions can create massive transformations. Change begins with the invisible choices we make every day. The teacher understood, in the deepest way possible, that teaching is much more than delivering formulas or demanding results. It's about seeing potential where no one else does. And so, with humility and a true desire to change, she began writing a new page, not only in her own life, but in the countless stories that would go on to impact many other students. And speaking of impact, Lucas's speech would seal this transformation even deeper. On the day of the tribute, the school auditorium was packed. Parents, students, teachers, all curious to hear from the simple boy who, with a piece of chalk, had changed the course of so many stories. Lucas walked up to the stage, a little shy at first, but with a soul full of truth. And what he said that day, my friends, wasn't just about math. It was about persistence, humility, and how many brilliant minds are forgotten every day just because they don't fit society's expected mold. He shared how he had taught himself to study, how his mother, even without knowing how to read, was the first to teach him the importance of knowledge. With a firm but emotional voice, Lucas reminded everyone that no one should be judged by appearance, and that every human being carries within themselves a universe of possibilities waiting to be discovered. If you've ever felt small in front of a challenge, or invisible in a world that idolizes appearances, take this tip. Read The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. It will help you reclaim your true essence. Every word Lucas spoke seemed to light a spark in those listening. It was as if everyone there suddenly realized how many amazing stories they had probably ignored in their lives. And deep down, it was as if each person who heard that speech was being challenged. Who have you failed to truly see? But this was just the first wave of transformation. The biggest was yet to come, with the ripple effect beyond the school's walls. That simple scene, a boy solving a problem on a chalkboard and speaking from the heart, turned into an avalanche of inspiration. Within days, Lucas's story crossed the school gates, swept through the city streets, and exploded across the internet. It was as if the whole world needed to hear that one truth, that true talent isn't measured by what you wear, but by the fire you carry inside. And honestly, who hasn't needed that reminder at some point in life? News reports began to surface, local radio and TV programs shared Lucas's journey, and his name became synonymous with hope. Schools from other regions started using his story as an example in lectures about inclusion and overcoming adversity. If you want to see something similar happen in your life, start sharing good stories too, on social media, in conversations, in small community projects. Books like Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon teach how spreading ideas can change realities. The most beautiful part, the impact went beyond emotional inspiration. It started to spark concrete actions, changing school policies and creating opportunities for more young people from humble backgrounds. And guess what? The turning point of this transformation hadn't even arrived yet. Something even bigger was being prepared behind the scenes, ready to create new stories of opportunity for those who needed it most. With all the attention Lucas's story received, something extraordinary began to happen. The school, which had once struggled with few resources and almost no visibility, became the center of attention. Local entrepreneurs, NGOs, and even universities mobilized to support science and math projects for low-income children. Suddenly, that old library where Lucas once studied became a dream lab, with new computers, updated books, and volunteer teachers. And it didn't stop there. Other young people, who like Lucas had lived in the shadows of prejudice, began to feel seen. The school created a program called Bright Minds, focused on finding and nurturing hidden talents, regardless of social status. If you want to be part of movements like this, start small, adopt a public library, support educational projects, recommend free courses to those who need them. Books like Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg show how anyone can make a positive impact. Each child reached, each talent discovered was a new seed planted. New stories of hope being born from the courage of one boy who believed in himself. And the most incredible part, there was still one last powerful lesson this episode had in store for everyone lucky enough to witness this transformation. In the end, what Lucas's story teaches us goes far beyond solving a math problem on a board. It exposes a truth we often forget. Human potential can never be measured by the clothes someone wears or the neighborhood they come from. True greatness lives where few have the patience to look, in silent effort, daily dedication, and the unseen passion that moves mountains. Let's be honest, it's these invisible stories that truly change the world. The school, the classmates, the teacher, everyone was transformed. But the greatest transformation was internal, in the heart of each person who witnessed that turning point. From then on, judging by appearances became as outdated as using a paper map on your smartphone. If you want to take the first step toward applying this lesson, start by paying closer attention. Next time you meet someone ordinary, ask yourself what story of resilience might be hidden behind that shy smile. Sometimes, it only takes one conversation to discover treasures. Lucas didn't just change his own life, he rewrote the script for an entire community. He showed that courage, resilience, and humility are the real indicators of success. And let's be real, after hearing this story, how could we ever look at people the same way again? But wait, there's still one last piece to complete this puzzle perfectly. Now tell me, how many times have you let an opportunity pass by because you judged someone, or even yourself, by appearances? How many incredible stories have you ignored because they didn't come packaged the way you expected? The truth is simple, but powerful. The world is full of silent geniuses, of talents hidden where no one bothers to look, and maybe, just maybe, you are one of them. How many doors could you have opened if you had given a chance to one of those quiet stories that crossed your path? How many people have crossed your life carrying priceless bags of knowledge, experience, and strength, but you didn't even notice? Sometimes, the greatest opportunity of our lives comes disguised in simple clothes, in timid words, in presences that almost go unnoticed. The problem is, we've been conditioned to look for sparkle, labels, and showiness. From a young age, we are taught to associate value with appearance. And then, without realizing it, we start to ignore those stories that don't scream for attention, but have the power to transform everything around us. Look around. Examples are everywhere. Great leaders, inventors, entrepreneurs, artists. Many started humbly, doubted, underestimated. How many could have been erased before even blooming if they had depended solely on superficial judgments? Every great journey we know today was once just a silent story waiting to be noticed. And now, back to you. How many times have you doubted yourself, thinking you weren't enough to try? That you didn't have the right look, the right style, the perfect resume? Well, guess what? You also carry stories that deserve to be lived, told, and valued. And maybe it's in your imperfections, in your silent battles, that your greatest strength lies. So I ask you, are you ready to stop judging the cover and start seeing the content? Ready to open your eyes to new stories, both in your life and in the lives of others? Because honestly, that's where real change begins. It's not about looking good on paper. It's about being true to your essence. It's about recognizing the beauty hidden between the lines of life. Once we choose to look beyond appearances, an entire universe opens up. Opportunities that once seemed invisible start to reveal themselves. People who once seemed ordinary show their greatness, and we ourselves begin to see how full of valuable stories we are. Stories that deserve to be celebrated, not hidden. Imagine how many deep connections, how many powerful lessons you could have lived if you had given a chance to these stories. Imagine how many partnerships, how many unforgettable moments could have emerged simply because you decided to see beyond the obvious. Well, maybe it's time to do things differently. If you apply this perspective shift starting today, trust me, you'll build a much richer future. Not just in material success, but in true meaning, in genuine relationships, in achievements that make your heart race. Because at the end of the day, it's these stories, the ones that move, challenge, and inspire us, that truly endure. And don't think it's too late. Every new day is a blank page, ready to welcome the next stories you will choose to live. All you need is to decide, I will look beyond. I will listen before judging. I will believe in the power hidden where no one else is willing to look. And look, change starts with small things. A smile for someone who feels invisible. A genuine question for someone no one cares to listen to. A second chance for someone discarded before they could show their worth. Each small act like this is a seed you plant. And these seeds, my friend, have the power to change entire forests of stories. So if this reflection touched you in any way, if it resonated inside you, if it made you think of someone, or of a story of your own that deserves to be retold with more love, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here, we don't just share stories that transform, we learn together to write the next ones. Ready to truly grow? Ready to help build a world where every person, every journey, and every silent battle gets the space and respect it deserves? The next stories are already being written. And guess what? You are part of them.